2022. My name, one of your co-hosts, is Jeff Marushak, and I'm a Senior Solutions Architect on our DoD Air Force team. And joining me, my co-host, Steve. Tell us who you are.
Hey, I'm Steve Roberts, Developer Advocate for .NET and PowerShell at AWS. And in this segment, we're joined by Hyung and Arun to talk about Data Wrangler. Yes. Please introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about what you do.
All right. Hi, I'm Hyung. I'm a Senior Product Manager at Data Wrangler team. I'm very excited to be here today to talk about the launch that we have. And Arun?
Hey, I'm Arun Shankar. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect with the Data Wrangler team. Very excited to be showing a short demo of Data Wrangler, what it can do.
Okay, so for our viewers that might not know what Data Wrangler is, let's start there, do a quick overview, and we can go about the new features.
Yes. Okay, so Data Wrangler is the fastest and easiest way to prepare data for machine learning using a low-code interface. So it is purpose-built to address the key challenges with data preparation. And so it includes all the tools that you need to completely prepare data, from data import to analysis to the data preparation, cleaning, feature engineering, and productionization.
When you say key challenges, is that around things like the quality of the data, like cleaning it, making sure it's
yes.
Good?
So multiple challenges, right? First of all, there's multiple tools that you need to use normally for data preparation, which require you to learn about it and context switching between them. Second, you have to write a lot of boilerplate code because many of these tools are general purpose. And it takes time away from actually building and training the model for the data scientists. And third of all, it's hard to keep track of the operation, right? And especially it's difficult to scale. Like the same code that you use for experimentation, you cannot run on millions and billions of rows of data. So you normally have to switch to something more powerful like Spark, which is difficult to learn and to maintain. And then finally, it's difficult to bring to production. Normally, you need to bring in an ML engineer who can refactor the code, optimize the performance, and then put it in a pipeline production, right, to deploy it to training or inference pipeline. So all of that are difficult, and Data Wrangler have all the tools that you need to
Sounds to me like when we're looking at machine learning and training models, there's like a significant amount of lead time work that needs to be done.
Exactly.
Right, and this is where Data Wrangler kind of fits in.
Exactly.
To help shorten and optimize that time.
Yeah, it's optimized the time for you to prepare data, and it's also optimized the time for you to automate that process later. Because it's not a one-time thing. You have to keep repeating it throughout the machine learning cycle.
Cool.
Yeah.
So can you go through exactly how Data Wrangler helps enable that data prep, not only initially, but going into production as well?
Definitely. So there's two key features that we launched today that I want to plug in here as well. So it helps, first of all, reduce the barrier to start the machine learning project. Normally, you have to start with collecting enough data for machine learning, right? Which require you to use multiple tools and connect to multiple data sources and bring in data from various formats. And Data Wrangler reduced that barrier by bringing in native connectors that you can use to connect to data sources like S3, Athena, Redshift, Databricks, Snowflake, just out of the box without using other tools. And today, Sami announced that we now have the ability to connect to over 40 third-party application data sources.
Oh, that's important.
So you can bring in data from Salesforce, from Google Ads, Google Analytics, SAP, and more, right? With just a few clicks of a button. Yep, so really lower the first part of the barrier to enter the machine learning project. And then at the end, once you go through all the process, you've created your data flow with cleaning and feature engineering, you then need to scale, right, and to deploy into production. So Data Wrangler, as I mentioned, normally you had to bring in a machine learning engineer to do those steps. And Data Wrangler make it simpler today by enable you to deploy to an inference endpoint directly from the Data Wrangler UI. So Arun is going to show you that.
I understand we have a demo of the new feature.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I want to see this.
Let's take a look.
Perfect. So let's actually take a look at what happens when you get inside SageMaker Studio. So what you see here is SageMaker Studio. So that's our unified IDE to interact with all the SageMaker components. It's a place where you can come and create Jupyter notebooks and interact with Data Wrangler and several other tools. So here what you're seeing is all the different data sources for which you have access to within Data Wrangler. So natively, we were supporting S3, Athena, Redshift, Snowflake, EMR, Databricks, right, previously, but now with the SaaS integration, we have 40 plus new data sources that you can connect to. So this is by connecting via app flow and, and making sure the data is all cataloged by Glue. You can pull any data from these different data sources. But for the demo, I'm going to be showing how to basically get some data from Salesforce.
All right.
So here, let's go, click on Salesforce. Let's give it a name. I'm going to call it loan data set. So it's a simple data set that we already have it cataloged by Glue, and it's available. So let's go and see how to connect to it. So you can see that once you make a connection, you can see all the different databases and tables you have access to. So in this case, I have access to the loan demographics information, right? It's a table with 4 features. So I can look at a preview of this table, and then I can also go up and then type in a query. So which means, let's say you have many, many more feature columns. You can go and slice and dice the data by running your own queries here. So I'm going to copy the table name here. So for this demo, we just pull all the rows. Sure. But theoretically, you can go and actually run any type of query in here. So you run the query. So this is powered by Athena, right? Because the data is already cataloged. And then you can go and apply sampling if you wanted to. So in this case, we have different options for sampling. Let's go and pick the first case sampling. And then let's go and import the data.
So can you just briefly explain what first case sampling is?
First case, so you're saying I want first 50,000 rows of my data.
Oh, okay.
So that's the idea here.
I'm a machine learning.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Then once you have your data imported, basically, you got your data to data flow. And then next you can go and actually apply all the different transforms you have for Data Wrangler. Let's see, what's it? Yeah. Let's see if I can minimize this a little bit. So let's save the sample strategy, which is first K. Let's import and then give it a name. We're going to call it loans data set. So now that's importing the data, so you can see the entire table here. When you go back to data flow, you can see that we have 2 nodes now, right? So we got the data from Salesforce. We have these nodes created.
Okay.
So you can do that, right? You have data from different data sources. So I have a more complete data flow that I've already created before. So you can see that you can pull it from S3, you can pull it from other data sources, join the data sets. And then once you have the data sets joined, you can go and run some automated analysis. So as part of Data Wrangler, we give you built-in transforms, right? These are actions you can take on your individual feature columns. You can also go and run analysis. So here what we've done is we've run some automated analysis, right? So this is pretty cool. So Data Wrangler will go and just take a look at your data, raw state, and see what are the different analysis it can come up with. So it's doing all this behind the scenes, right?
Yep.
Rather than you going and writing the code and figuring out all the magic, it's just doing it for you.
Well, even the transforms being built in, that's saving time.
That's saving
with you not having to go out to, say, ETL and back and do it.
Exactly. It's 300 plus transform built in.
Yeah.
And both common transform as well as advanced machine learning platform as well, like one-hot encoding, for example, or
Gotcha.
time series.
Yeah.
Right. So what you get at the end of it is basically this big report, right, with all the issues and what are the actions you can take. So it even says, okay, I've got an issue with missing data, so you go and apply this transform, right?
Oh, so it's not just telling you, I analyze the data, it analyzes the data, and here are the problems. It's actually going to guide you in how you can go and fix that problem.
Yes. So we call it prescriptions, course of actions you need to take. So which is what, right? If you go back to the data flow, that's what I've done. So I've looked at all the different prescriptions, and I applied those prescriptions. So individual nodes, basically, or the different transforms I applied. And then what you do is you come back and then just rerun the same automated analysis again, just to make sure that all those issues disappeared, right? So that's the mitigation step you took.
Yeah.
And then again, after that, you can now go and apply things like, the regular feature transforms you would do for machine learning. Things like, how do I handle different feature types? And at the end of it, what you have is an export option. Because now I've completed my data transformations, I've completed my analysis, I need to go now export this data, right? So either I can export it directly to S3 or feature store if I wanted to. Like today we launched an extra option called inference pipeline. So export all these steps into an inference pipeline notebook. Now what this is going to do is very interesting. So this is like assuming that you took the output of data Wrangler, which is basically process data, right? That's ready for building your model. So let's say you go on to build a model, and then you go on to host it, right? Deploy it.
Yep.
Now you have a payload that comes in during inference. You got to make sure that that raw payload, when you make the request to that endpoint, goes through the exact same steps. So previously, as a user, I would have to deal with it, right? I would have to make sure that I take the data flow, build that containers and logic and all of that. But with this option, what you could do is, you can generate a notebook that just gives you all the code to do that automatically. So if I walk through this code pretty quickly, you can see that it actually, all you need to do is just point to the location, right? Point to the model location where you actually train a model using that data Wrangler output. And then once you have that location, you can say that I can now go and create a pipeline, inference pipeline, because it's combining the steps as a pre-processing step, right? All the data Wrangler steps, and then the prediction logic as another sort of container. So that's what this is doing. This to make sure that we don't have any skew between train and prediction. So that's the idea.
Right.
On top of it, we also have other export options, right? So you can also go and export these steps directly to S3 if you wanted to. Maybe you have a different training strategy, or you just want to take a look at your data and do further sort of analysis. You can also export it as a pure Python code. You can also export it as part of pipelines. A lot of times, right, you want to take this feature pipeline but make it part of a bigger workflow. So we have an option for that. And then again, as Huang was mentioning, a lot of times what you're doing here is experimental, right? It's the first stab at your data. But maybe your data set is like 10 times bigger, right? It's billions of rows. Now, how do I take the same recipe and scale it?
Yeah.
So for that, we have something called a destination node. So once you create a destination node, as I've created here, so I've already created one that's going to write to S3. But what these nodes allow you to do is create these distributed processing jobs right at the top. So these are fully managed Spark jobs. And now you say that, okay, now I'm going to scale, but I'm going to scale on a larger data set, so I'm going to do it in a distributed fashion, right? So I go and define my cluster. I know my data set is 10 times larger, so I need maybe 10 more nodes to crunch this data. So you can do all of that within the UI without writing any code.
That's pretty cool.
And
that saves a lot of time.
Yes, and it's possible because we automatically record all the steps and create a data flow on your behalf. And then all the code are backed by Spark. So that's why we can run it in parallel processing. Exactly.
That's cool.
And scale
so
it.
you showed exporting that S3 and just Python code. But going back to the import stage, the input, you had Salesforce, you had S3 data there. What other data inputs can we take?
Yep. So by default, we have S3, Athena, Redshift, and Snowflake and Databricks are the out-of-the-box connector, as you can see on top there.
Oh, there's all the connectors.
And then below, you see that there are now over 40 data sources that you can set up with Airflow. So there is once the admin go to the Airflow console and map those data sources to S3 or Redshift, and register that in Glue Data Catalog, it will automatically show up in the upper section. So you see that Salesforce and GitHub is now showing up as the data source. So
That's
to the
cool.
data scientist, it's just seamless.
That's
just
cool,
like
because I know we're going to be talking about Airflow and its data connectors later on in a subsequent session, so stay tuned for that. So yeah, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice to hear, because when you talk to data scientists and the people that are doing this, they always say preparing your data is not only the most important step, but it's a time-consuming step. So these two new features, number one, adding more sources that you can use, and then integrating it with going directly to production right at the inference point, I think is just going to make it's going to help our customers work with machine learning and their data. So thanks for coming on today, guys.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It's a
Thanks
pleasure.
for having us.
So we're going to take a quick break before our next segment. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in a few minutes.